Hi, my name's Kristen Brown. I was co-captain for California 2021 SELS. It was such a great week that we've had with all our meetings, and I realized that it might have helped for some teams to have a little bit of a video on how to run a virtual meeting. So I thought I would put together a slide deck and put together this little film. And if anything, I'll be watching it again next year or next time I get ready to have any meetings. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. This year, we were so fortunate to have the SELS team put together a template of a slide deck. I used their blank slides to come up with this slide deck, but it was really lovely to have it. Before you have your meeting, you're going to want to meet with your team. I really suggest that you give this at least a half an hour. You're going to work off of an agenda and you're going to start choosing who has what role. I suggest that you have the lead kind of be the fill-in person, but certainly if you're the one making the connection with the staff members or the Congress member or senator, you should be the one starting the meeting and closing the meeting. In the least, you should be closing the meeting. You might have a strong team or seasoned members that know these people that ask if they could take that role, by all means, but you're going to negotiate that a little bit, but you should certainly be involved at the end. You're going to choose one person to be responsible for the technology and timing. You're lucky if you get a half an hour. It could be 20 minutes. You need to kind of be careful with the speaking time that everyone has, because you need to have that window open at the end to really build that relationship. You're going to assign who speaks, maybe alternating the narrative and the tasks. The agenda itself sent out this year had all asks, not tasks, had asks and then said narrative. I prefer to flip that around and do the narrative before the ask, because it's always smart to set the issue and then the solution. And to me, the asks that SELS had this year were the solution. If we had this funding, it could do this, this, and this. And so we were saying, here's the issue, and this is how the funding would be that solution, because it opens up these opportunities. It's grant money that feeds into research when there's no room right now to do research about the effect of COVID, that kind of thing. So it's important that you kind of think about strategically how you want to lay that out. Make sure that everyone, if you say you've got 2 minutes to do this section when you've calculated out the time for everything, make sure they stick to that 2 minutes. If you have 2 minutes of someone doing the greeting, 2 minutes of someone doing the housekeeping, and then 4 minutes to each of your 3 subjects, where it's 2 minutes for the narrative and 2 minutes for the ask, you really want people to stick to it. The only way you're going to get them to stick to it is to have them write it in advance, write it, practice it, time it. That's what they need to do. And they need to make sure that if they're speaking, that they're incorporating in their own little introduction into that time segment. You should choose one person to be secretary. Typically, the lead is taking notes anyhow. So I was doing it when I was running slides, because I was tracking time of how long people are going here. But it's important that you have someone being secretary, because you need to report back what was to the SELS committee, and if there's questions that arise or issues that are in discussion that they might want to follow up on, it's helpful if you have that information to share. So as you open the meeting, you're going to start, with everyone's pictures on the screen. I want all those postage stamp images on the screen, because it's important that as that person's coming into the meeting, that they are seeing everyone. And I forgot to say that you should have everyone come to the meeting 15 minutes before the scheduled time to meet. As someone said during the summit, to be early is on time, and to be on time is late in these meetings. So have your team be early. That gives you a window of time. Hopefully if you're lead, you've shared your cell phone number so people could text you if life happens. And then if someone's canceling out the last minute, that window of time is your time to strategize and make sure that you're still appearing as a practice, rehearsed, cohesive team with a strong message, ready to build that relationship and present in that meeting. So you don't want to have everyone, oh, I don't know what to do because this person's not here. Plan for it. That's what that window of time is for. So after you've had the moment to welcome and and check in with the person that you're meeting with or people, because sometimes it's not just a designee, it's a or a senator or congress member, but they are bringing their staff with them. So once their team has introduced themselves, and you will welcome them and ask if they would share with you what their connection is with special education. And it's important that you say, I'd like to know your connection with education and your connection with the complexities of special education. And because you're using a phrase like complexities with special education, you're sending a signal to them that there's something very meaningful about special education and the deeper understanding, and that it's its own entanglement of information. And so if they're not very well tuned to it, having that signal, they'll respond to that. If they're not, if, I don't really know special education, but I do know education. I do know IDA, and I do know of IDA. It's very different language. So really take the time to listen, and also ask, share with them the information about the CC and the CASE. And as I've as you should think about when you're planning your meeting and you see your team, if you have more than 5 people, you're probably not everyone speaking, right? So you should have the people that are not speaking introduce themselves in chat. If everyone that is in the meeting is speaking, then they could be introducing themselves as they speak. For the presentation, you're going to want to do a little housekeeping after you've had that welcoming and introduction kind of cycle, and spoken about the CEC and the CASE to kind of put this meeting into the context of who exactly you're meeting with, and what great allies we could be. And part of that housekeeping, for instance, I was running closed captioning was an option when I was running the meeting. So I was just explaining there was an option there and why I use it. But I was also making a point to say I'm not recording it. Like it is already set up that I can't save that, all of that closed caption. It's a feature that you could save with Zoom, but I shut it off because enough of the representatives were saying, I don't want any kind of a recording. So I was making a point to say I'm still respecting that. You also want to say that you want to find out what their time constraints are. And so often they've given you a window, like I have a half an hour. So you could just say, and I understand that we were to end at this time. I just want to be clear if that's a hard stop for you or not. And listen to their response, because they might say, yes, it's a hard stop, it's very clear, but they might say, well, I have at least that time for you. Well, when they say that, what they're saying is get what you need to get done within that time constraint. But if this is an interesting conversation, I have a little leeway. And so make it an interesting conversation. That's what it tells me. You're going to want to make sure that the whole presentation has very strong flow. And so, as I mentioned before, one nice way to do that is as you wrap up your section, if you are the person doing the welcoming and you have somebody else doing the housekeeping comments, and so-and-so is going to talk a little bit about housekeeping, and they do the bit of housekeeping, and then they say, and so-and-so is going to start off the conversation about whatever the next issue that you're going to work on. Maybe it's mental health again. Maybe it's something's happening with IDA. I don't know what we'll be asking next year. Continuation of good funding. And then, as you run the show, just really keep track of time. If you are running the slides and someone is going along, advance the slide on them, because they will not see you going, like this in the slide or anything. That will be their cue. Ooh, you got to get this going. And if someone forgets to introduce the next person, don't wait for them to introduce you. Just step up and say, hi, I'm so and so, and I'm going to speak next about, help keep the flow going if you can. If you're running the show and you've noticed that there's a little hesitation, then jump in and say, well, I think now we're going to have so and so speak about, keep it going, keep that flow going. Wrapping it up, you want to do it in a way that invites questions. I always think it's nice to say, we've presented to you these issues and the solutions, and it's been a lot of information. We would like to know if you have any questions, but before you ask your questions, I just want you to really hear that we are allies here for you as well. So if there's things that you want to share with us, that you want to make sure are on our radar, that you want to make sure that we are can help get behind and push forward, let's talk about that as well. And that opens up a conversation. Really use that opportunity as you wrap it up to build that relationship. We had one legislative assistant just note that the person he represents is really strong on inclusion. And I took advantage of that. I said, well, it is Disability Pride Month. And I noticed that the website that you're using doesn't have a widget for people with disabilities. And would you go back and look at the CEC website, because they've got a beautiful widget for disabilities, and consider that. And it got into the conversation and it intrigued him. And that was one of those, I have at least X amount of time, and he gave us double his time. So I'm just saying, build that relationship. Offer to connect to the CC and CASC for answers. It's really great that you're connecting them into the organization. There's so much and this just from your team. There's so much talent. There's so much depth to what this group can bring to this advocacy. And there are people that have the answers within the organization when you don't. So make that connection. If they said they weren't strong with the complexities of special education, then certainly connect them to the CC and CASE to get back to them, and give them just bullet points and help them simplify what the complexities are, but at least get them on par, so that when they're starting to hear issues further down the line, they're coming to it with a more educated understanding, and then that furthers their ability to respond. Thank them for their time. They are so busy. I cannot tell you. I don't know why their heads are still on their shoulders, because mine would spin right off. And before you wrap up, just say, we love to commemorate that we had these meetings. Do you mind if we take a picture? We'd like to do a quick screenshot. Give them a 3, 2, 1, everybody smile. And, and you're going to get great pictures from that. Post meeting with the team, make sure that you have the team linger after the meeting, after the representative or the designee has dropped off. Talk about the flow, talk about what went well. It always goes mostly well, I have to say. You could talk about what went better, what could have gone better. If you have the same team moving into another meeting with the same presentation and the same lineup of who's speaking, and someone tended to go long, just ask, is there any way you could shave down one story because you were a minute or two over and I'm worried about us going too long. That's the moment to do it. And then any thoughts that the team has on following up. We had one senator's representative asked a question, and someone said, it'd be nice if we expanded on it this way. And that's really lovely. Because then that just really, that means that now we could build into that response, a very well thought out response, and that builds that relationship. That's what we're here to do, build those relationships. Follow up, keep those commitments, send a thank you. If you've committed to getting back to them on any information, make sure that you're doing that, or that you're having the SELS team do that, if that's who you promised would connect back to them. If you said you would and it's information you have, do reach out to the SELS team, because they can get back to you with a lot of information or research, point you in the right direction for some great research to then, sift through and pull the right answers from. When you respond, keep the whole team involved. If you're the lead, with that thank you, don't just send it from you, send it from the team. Setting up the meeting was with you, but that meeting was with the team. So keep them involved with that thank you as well. And last but not least, oops, I unshared too soon. Uh-oh. I just wanted to show that a couple of the pictures that we had taken. What you could see in this is, 2 pictures, but do you see the problem in one? Yeah, don't leave your closed caption on when you take a screenshot, because then I've the lovely Vicky is covered with my words there. And be okay if someone doesn't want to be on camera. You're asking everyone's permission. When you say, may I take a picture to commemorate this? And by the way, I will probably want to share it on social media. Would that be okay with you? I forgot to ask. I'm still trying to get permission on my first meeting and it's the biggest photo. So I can't even share that one here. But these are really important things. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. At the end of your meeting, when you're having those conversations, that's the opportunity to stop sharing. You'll have all those postage stamps of everybody's faces right there. It shows that we're back in the room, we're back into the conversation, presentation's over. It invites that conversation. Let it be fruitful conversation. Make sure that you're building that relationship. Have I said that enough? And by all means, I'm so proud that you're going to do this. If you've done this before, oh, I'm proud of you too. Let's keep this going. This is wonderful momentum that we've had this year. And we need to keep it going and make sure that we are heard, make sure that special education is seen, make sure that the value of our teachers and staff and research and grants is known, because it's just been overlooked way too long, and it's up to us to do that. So thank you for doing the good work, and I hope I'm helping you with your meeting in some way. Take care.